Yes, what's good, ladies and gents? Welcome to the MKO Pugilism Boxing channel where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like, subscribe. If you're new, hit the bell notification, put it on all so you can get notified as soon as new content drops on the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, early hours of this morning, I think 7 a.m. UK time, Terence Bud Crawford becomes a four-weight division world champion by beating Israil Madrimov over 12 rounds. Now, this was a fight in which I picked Terence Crawford going into it. I just thought he'd be that level above Israil Madrimov, who is a good fighter, but I thought he'd be able to quite comfortably beat this guy going into the fight. I just thought there would be a difference in levels, but I thought it would be a difficult fight. And to be honest with you, it turned out to be a pretty difficult fight for Terence Bud Crawford. I think from the start, Madrimov sort of came forward, marauding forward, but he was quite respectful of Terence Crawford. He was sort of figuring Crawford out. And I think Crawford pretty much, he took the first couple of rounds just outboxing Madrimov, but Madrimov was always there. He was always in the fight, but I felt that Crawford sort of won the battle of the jabs. The jab was always there. That right jab was always in Madrimov's face. He was always putting that hand there, and Madrimov is an intelligent fighter, and he was being quite careful about what he was doing. He wasn't just recklessly attacking Terence Crawford. What he was doing, he was on the front foot, and he was looking for opportunities to counter Crawford, and he did find those opportunities. There were some good right hands landed here and there. But for me, Terence Crawford, just all the way through this, was just sort of outboxing him and having to work. And you saw a few differences in this fight to Terence Crawford's other fights. I mean, one of the differences should I say, that Terence Crawford was having to apply a high guard at certain times. So there were certain times in this fight, especially those mid rounds, where he'd feel the power of Madrimov and he'd have to tuck up, put a high guard up. So Crawford, he was good in his fight, but because of the strength of Madrimov, and I think you can tell, the weight difference. There was a punching power of Madrimov was serious as well. So you could tell that although I think Crawford won this quite clearly, he was very conscious of Madrimov's punching power, Madrimov's strength, and the way he boxed in this fight was a bit more, I would say, a little bit more conservative than normal, because he won it by being very clever, using his experience, and overall throughout as the rounds wore on, Madrimov was always sort of the man on the front foot. Terence was on the back foot, Crawford, and he was peppering away with his jab and allowing Madrimov to come towards him, being first and then kind of being last, as Madrimov would have his success certain times. As after Crawford led off, sometimes Madrimov would get through with the odd counter. But for me, in a lot of Madrimov's attacks, there was kind of a lack of a jab there. So as he was coming towards Terence Crawford, he wasn't really, for the most part at least, he wasn't really jabbing his way into Terence Crawford and then getting close. He was kind of working off of what Terence Crawford gave him. So they're there, middle of the ring, Crawford backs off, Crawford throws a jab, 1-2 or whatever shot, and then Madrimov would then try to work off of that, and then Crawford would cleverly throw combinations after that. And that was throughout the majority of the fight. That was kind of the pattern, where you had Terence Crawford being first and being last. So even when he'd have his rocky moments where Madrimov would land a shot here and there, where Madrimov would land a combination, Terence Crawford, with his veteran experience, would kind of, in some of the rounds, at least a lot of them, I would say, kind of counteract the work of Madrimov by, as I said, being first. And then as Madrimov does, is countering, some of it successful, some not so successful. Crawford would then counter the counter. So he may get hit, take a shot here and there, and then he'd throw a combination after that, and then he'd be on the move. And that was kind of the pattern of this fight. You had Terence Crawford, I would say for me, sort of outworking and outboxing Madrimov, and Madrimov sort of coming off second best as an overall thing. I'd say that's really sort of what won Terence Crawford the fight, was the fact that he just sort of outboxed Madrimov and outworked him. He just threw, even he's getting on a bit now. He's 36, I think he's soon to be 37, but he's still got a decent work rate, decent engine, and he was making sure he's showing the judges that he's winning the fight, whereas Madrimov was always sort of trailing, always sort of behind in his fight, and sort of having to work after Terence Crawford worked. So, and with Crawford as well, a lot of the time sort of countering what Madrimov does. So even after his success, Crawford fires back with something. And that, I think for me, that pattern of that whole thing of countering and answering back whatever Madrimov does is what won him the fight for me. I think it was one of those performances where, yes, he's the man I expected to win, but also I would say that overall he did have to work very hard for this, because there were moments where he got a little bit rocked. He didn't really look in danger of going down, but you could tell where he felt the shot. So he had to be very careful about what he did. And, for me, that's what won him for me. Won it for Crawford was just his the counter punching ability, and as I said in the beginning, sort of being first and then being last. So he was the clear winner for me. I think Madrimov did take he did take rounds 2, and for me, I didn't really score it round by round, but for me, I would agree with sort of the 7-5 scorecard of the judges. I think it was 115, 113, and I kind of give it to Crawford there by a couple of rounds. The other judge had it 116, 112 to Crawford. I mean, all three cards having the right winner there. But yeah, for me, that was the story of the fight. Good victory for Terence Crawford, but I think it does put this idea of him challenging Canelo into perspective, because yes, he won this fight, and yes, he won it pretty clearly, but you could tell there that he did look a lot more human against a 154-pounder than he did at welterweight. At welterweight, you would see he would throw more caution to the wind, he would take more risks. But in this fight, he did work very hard for the victory. He did, punches in bunches, but you could tell that he was a lot more careful about what he was doing, because he knew he was challenging a bigger man, a stronger man, a man that punches a lot harder. So you could tell that he had to be a lot more careful here. So God only knows what would happen if he did take on Canelo at 168. I think he was talking about that after the fight. It was either the interview or the press conference. They were talking about that. But for me, I think, yeah, you could do that and challenge yourself, but I think it's a very dangerous move, and I'd say you've got to back Canelo in that fight. I think Crawford has the skills to do it, but I think the strength and the power and the size of a although he hasn't got the height, but just the physical strength and the mass and that physical presence of Canelo, I'd have to favor him in that fight. Much as I say Crawford, he's got the skills, he's got the style to upset someone like Canelo. I just think Canelo will probably just be a bit too big, too strong for him. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't blame him for taking a fight and challenging himself, if that's what's next. I mean, as for Israil Madrimov, he still performed well, nothing to be ashamed of, but I think he just got beaten by the better, more experienced boxer. I mean, that was only his 11th fight, so Madrimov will come again and Madrimov will get better. But Terence Crawford, the rightful winner, came to the fight with the right tactics and won it for me. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. And until next time, it's MKO Pugilism, over and out.